Hey guys, fishing and stuff. Today we're making a no weld aluminum rod holder. And it's pretty dang awesome, so stick around. There's a lot of rod holders on the market for bank fishing. Most of them are made out of steel and you have to have a welder to make them. They're not that complicated, but they sure are pricey. On today's DIY, we're making an aluminum rod holder for bank fishing. And you don't have to have a welder to make it. And speaking of DIYs, if you hadn't checked my channel page out, go over and check it out. I got a long list of DIYs that will help you save some money. And if you see something you like, click subscribe and click the bell so that YouTube will notify you when I post videos and you can watch them. So let's get into building this rod holder, because I love a good experiment. On today's video, we're basically doing some experimenting on how we could weld aluminum without an aluminum welder. This is brazing rod. This one here's the same thing, but it comes from Harbor Freight and it's called aluminum weld. All it is aluminum brazing rods. I wanted to do some strength tests to make sure this stuff's going to work, because I don't want your rod holder breaking and somebody losing their rod and reel. I already tried the Harbor Freight brand and it did pretty good. I had to beat this thing pretty hard to get it to come off of there. And you can see right there, the aluminum actually broke and the piece of aluminum stayed in the braze. So, I mean, it holds pretty good. Well, I was doing some reading, and everything I read said the Hobart was a little bit better than the Harbor Freight brand. Well, they cost pretty much the same thing, about $16 a pack. So I got me some Hobarts, and I'm gonna try them out now. One more thing you need to know, in order to get a good bond, you need to clean your aluminum really good. And I cleaned this before I did it. I got another piece set up and I'm going to try the Hobart brand on it. And you can see around the bottom there, I've cleaned it. Use a steel wire brush. It works really good. Or use a piece of Scotch-Brite. But get it clean. And then I wiped it off with acetone. Now most people use a torch to heat this up, to put the aluminum brazing rod on with. Don't stick the brazing rod in the fire itself. Get your metal hot. According to the packages they came in, the working temperature for the Harbor Freight brand is 750 degrees and it has a tensile strength of 40,000 psi. Now the Hobart brand has a working temperature of 700 degrees, and like I said, it says allow the metal temperature to melt the aluminum rod. Don't stick the aluminum rod in the fire. You gotta get your metal hot enough to melt it. If you want a good bond, I'm gonna use some MAP gas to heat up my metal and melt it that way. Alright, so got a piece brazed on here. Ain't real pretty, but it's alright, because this is just an experiment. Looks pretty solid. It's on there. Now I'm gonna take a hammer and I'm gonna beat it off of there. It's just bending this stuff back and forth. This is like 3/16 aluminum, and it's just bending the bottom piece and won't break loose. But we gonna break it, because we wanna see what it looks like. Time to bring the big boy out. Alright, I beat the crap out of this thing and it just don't want to break loose. I don't know about y'all, but I'm convinced. The Harbor Freight one broke off, but it had a 1/4 inch base plate and it didn't flex. So the next experiment, we're going to use a thicker base plate. But I need to get this off of here. It just ain't won't come off. Alright, the heck with that. For the next experiment, I got some thicker aluminum because I don't want the bottom bending on me. I'm going to take an aluminum pipe and I'm going to set it on here and I'm going to drill holes around the base and drill holes around the bottom of the aluminum pipe because I'm thinking that might give something for the brace to grab onto and make it just as strong as a weld. We'll find out. But I got to drill these holes first. I got my holes drilled in my base. Ain't pretty, but I ain't trying to be pretty. This is just a strength test. And I got my holes drilled in my pipe. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it on there like that. And when I braze it, I'm gonna try to get the braze in the holes. And I think it'll hold on even stronger. But I could be wrong. That last one was pretty strong without the holes. I'm gonna use the hole bar again because that stuff seems to be pretty dang strong. Now something else, if you don't have a torch and you don't want to go out and buy one, now if you got a burner, and this by the way is the burner that I used on the video where I made the jigs and I melted and recycled plastic to do it, go check it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on the burner and I'm going to turn it on and just let it heat up because you want to melt that rod with the metal, not with the torch. So when this gets up to temperature, I can just run my rod around. In theory, it should work. Even though I'm using this burner to heat up my metal, it's taking too long, so I'm going to use a torch. Alright, so this thing cooled off finally, and I got it so hot that it kind of ran out flat. It didn't keep a rolled up bead, but if you look at the discoloration around it, it looks like it penetrated pretty dang good. We're going to try to knock it off now. I'm going to take a hammer and beat on it. It could be weaker because of the way it ran down, and the holes really didn't seem to help much. I still got a feeling this thing might hold all right, because I'm still impressed by this thing. That's just impressive there. I gotta say, this stuff is strong. There ain't no fish gonna break this stuff. I mean, I had to waylay on this stuff pretty dang hard. And this is thick aluminum. This ain't no thin stuff. And that's impact. A rod going down is not going to break this. So I got the one I did with the Harbor Freight aluminum brazing rod. It helped really good. It actually ripped the aluminum loose. You can see it right there. This one exceeded my expectations. Then we got the one we drilled the holes in, which was kind of a fail, but it still helped really good. I mean, I had to beat the heck out of that thing to get it to break. That's not a real torque test, that's impact. I mean, I beat the heck out of it. It's pretty dang strong. And then we got this one, which we still ain't got off yet. This one here really impressed me. I'm getting this thing off of here. I give up. Now we got us another piece of aluminum pipe and we got some aluminum angle. And this stuff is pretty thick, by the way. They're both at least 3/16. But we're gonna take these two and we're gonna make a fishing stand. You see them all the time made out of steel. And if you got a welder, they're nothing to make. That's really why I hadn't never did a video on one. But they always charge a lot for them, and everybody don't have a welder. Well, with this technique, anybody can do it, even if you don't have a welder. The first thing we need to do is cut this aluminum angle. It's about 3 foot, but I'm gonna cut a spike onto the end of it so we can put it in the ground. Alright, so we got our spot cut in there so we can jab it in the ground. By the way, if you like this bandsaw, I got a video on how you can make your own. Go check it out. It comes in really handy. Next, we need to cut off the ends of our pipe and clean it up some. Yep, got that done. Next, we're gonna have to clean this up, and we're gonna have to clean up our piece of angle, because like I said, it needs to be clean or the braze ain't gonna hold right. Alright, so I clamped my angle iron into my vise, and I clamped it in on its side, as you can tell. Then I laid my pipe in there, and I put a little clamp on it to hold it. I got a little bit sticking out the end right here. That's just the way I want mine. You could leave a little bit of this sticking out the end so you could use a hammer to knock it into the ground. I think I can still hit this with a hammer and leave this sticking out. That way I can put a little bit of Plasti Dip on the end right here, and it'll look good. So now I'm gonna heat it up, and I'm gonna run a bead down through here. Make sure this is clean before you do it. Don't really look half bad after it's done. As soon as I was done, I turned it and it dripped, so I had to turn it back and let it cool off like this, but it don't look half bad. All right, so my brazing finally cooled down, and I went ahead and taped this thing off, and I'm gonna Plasti Dip this in. I wish I had some dip. I could just dip it. It would look a lot better, but I do happen to have some spray, so I'm just gonna use that. This thing actually turned out pretty dang cool. I like the way it turned out. Well, that turned out, you know.
Now that right there is awesome.
Yeah, I really like it. And I hope it helps somebody out there to build their own rod holder. Look guys, if you like this video, click that like button. And if you're not subscribed, then I don't know what you're waiting on. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next build.